Welcome to Higher Self Mastery, the podcast for women ready to leave behind who they were told to be and remember who they truly are. I'm your host, Dami Schumacher. This is your space to come home to yourself, to honor the inner pull for more truth and more depth, and more meaning as you enter a new chapter of your life. Together, we're reframing midlife crisis into the midlife magic that it actually is, because this is your rebirth. Through soulful conversations and spiritual tools, you'll reconnect to your truth and reclaim your voice and live the life that your soul came here for. So let's begin. Hello and welcome back to another episode of Higher Self Mastery. I'm your host, Dami Schumacher. Thank you so much for joining me. If you are in a turbulent chapter of your life right now and are looking for a sign that you are not doing this alone, then this episode is for you. What if you are actually not alone in this? What if the universe is actually not silent, but because the stress, the speed and the anxiety and the overthinking have just made the volume turn down so you can't hear the support that is actually waiting for you out there? My intention for you at the end of this episode is that you are able to trust that you are not alone and walking this path on your own, that you are fully guided all of the time, and to be able to notice those nudges and be able to take calm, certain steps and follow those nudges when they do show up for you. So let's dive straight into it. I personally stopped believing in coincidences a very long time ago, about a decade ago, maybe more. And what I do want to do today is be able to reframe that for you, because I truly believe everything happens exactly as it is carefully orchestrated to happen by the universe for us, always for our highest good. Now, I've said it before and I'll say it again. The universe is always conspiring for you and never against you, no matter what may be going on in your life and how turbulent things may appear to be in any particular phase of your life. And I know that can be difficult to see that perspective and have that perspective sometimes when we're in the thick of it. But I promise you that is the way of it, right? And borrow my belief if you need to borrow my belief as truth, because you are always being guided and supported. That is going to nurture and support your greatest evolution and growth. And those things that a lot of people call coincidences are actually carefully orchestrated events and experiences that are put into mathematical precision in place, and the timing and how it's done exactly so that it can have the impact on any individual in just the right way. And this is something that we call synchronicities. Now, not everything is a synchronicity, yet I do believe that everything is orchestrated. Some things are more benign and are just there in the background and more like the filler that make up the full context of what is going on. But sometimes, and I know you will understand what I'm saying here, sometimes you will notice something that is so ordinary, but for whatever reason, it catches your attention. It makes you stop, it makes you pause, it makes you think, and sometimes you might even stand there and go, why? Why is that important? Why have I noticed that? Why does that feel significant? And sometimes because it does appear to be so ordinary and so normal that the thought process is so quick and so swift in our minds that it can all happen very quickly before we've dismissed it already. That is until we become well practiced in pausing longer, intentionally pausing longer, so we can take notice of these things and pause in that pause to ask ourselves the question, what is it about this that resonates for me? What is it about this that is calling my attention? Is it a sign that I need to do something? Is it giving me a warning? Am I being told something? What kind of feeling does it evoke within me? Is it one of danger? Is it one of warning? Or is it one of attraction, magnetism that is pulling me towards it? Or just a little nudge and a calm knowing that, just trust this, just do this, just follow this, just take this, just go there. And you're just like, okay. And you don't even necessarily know why, but you can trust it. And those are the little synchronicities that I am talking about. Those are the very things that are divinely orchestrated to guide you. It's when we are in our most relaxed state that we are able to notice these much better. And I'll give you an example of this in my own story, my own life, where I had a profound set of synchronicities that led to something really quite big and important for me. And I'll share that in just a moment. But I can almost guarantee if I wasn't in the environment where I was so relaxed and just so open to things, I may well have missed it. And it may well have taken a lot longer for me to have noticed the guidance that was coming up, the synchronicities that were coming up for me. And maybe the universe, if it felt like it was still an important enough message to get to me, may have had to start knocking on my door a little bit louder, right? It's our willingness to be open to receive these symbols, these signs, this guidance is where we are able to notice them more as well. So things like the hustle, the stress, the anxiety, the fear, all of those things are very noisy in our head, and we are in our bodies not regulated, not in our safe place. Our nervous system is not feeling safe and supported. And so it's quite erratic. Our energy is erratic. Our vibration is erratic. And there's a lot of noise because your brain then starts to chatter and it's frantic and it will be talking a lot. So it'll be very, very noisy. To be able to recognize the synchronicities when you are in that kind of a state is really quite tricky. So it's not that the guidance isn't there. It is still there. It's just our ability to perhaps be able to recognize it becomes a little less clearer for us. And over time, once you have this openness that, yes, I am being guided all the time, all of the time, right? There is never a moment, never a day, never a chapter in your life where your higher self abandons you. Even if sometimes it may feel like that. And if it feels like that, it's probably because you're operating from one of these noisy places, states of energy, right? So you just can't hear it and you're feeling disconnected because it's so loud. But the more we practice asking for this guidance, asking for these signs, asking for the synchronicities and looking for them and trusting them and following those nudges, the more we become aware of them and the easier it becomes to notice them and see them and be able to trust them and find the patterns as well. So I said I'd share a story with you, and almost always it's easier to see the synchronicities and the patterns that played out in hindsight, as always is the case, right? But I have done quite a lot of this in the recent years, in the last 5 years, where I've looked back on all of my adult life and have been able to go, oh my gosh, so I did this and I was called to do that, or I was nudged to do this. And as a result of that, this happened. And then that led to this and that led to this. And wowzers, 20 years later, 30 years later, this is how it still connects to who I am today and how it's brought me here, right? And sometimes they're not such long threads. Sometimes they're very seasonal or for a particular phase of your life. And they're all very different, but I've been able to look back and find so many of these patterns. Once you begin to look for them, ask to be shown them, they are everywhere. And then now that I have that awareness of what has happened in the past for me, it does make it easier to see them now in the present moment. But of course, in the present moment, I have no idea what is going to come afterwards or where it's leading me necessarily. But what I do now have is that trust that I need to just follow it. If there is this little feeling, this trust, this knowing, and it's calm and it feels safe and it feels grounded, to just go with it, and allow myself to bounce from, like a ping pong, bounce from one point to the next point to the next point, wherever it's guiding me to go, in whatever direction that is, because ultimately it's going to lead to something that I'm asking for, or is just for my evolution, my growth, and my higher self, and the benefit of my higher self. So there's been so many examples of synchronicity in my life, but this one particular story is quite a long-ish story in terms of how long the thread runs out in my life over a few years, but I think it's a particularly profound one, and I'd like to share that with you. So back in about 2003, I was off doing a big backpacking trip with my then boyfriend. And a bit of background context here. We had been together since we were in college, so college sweethearts, and it was a long-term relationship, and we'd been together a really long time. But for quite some time, it just wasn't quite working. But there was such a beautiful, fundamental respect and friendship at the core of our relationship, and love, of course, as well. Neither one of us could ultimately walk away and leave the other. And so anyway, we're off on this trip together and everything's fine. We're traveling really well together. The relationship's not even at the forefront of my mind. But we get to the north of India, a little place called McLeodganj, not far from Dharamsala, which is where the Dalai Lama is in residence. And it turns out to be just a week of just relaxing, slowing down, enjoying the quiet mountain air, playing musical instruments, and just cooking and eating and just hanging out and chatting and hanging out with people, right? Not going anywhere on any adventures or anything like that necessarily. And I came across a group of people and we got chatting, and one of the girls came back and she looked so moved and she was electric, almost like buzzing. And she said, oh my gosh, I've just had the most profound experience of my life. And she went on to tell me about this meditation practice that she had just finished doing and how she would highly recommend it to anybody. And in that moment, like, meditation was something that I was very interested in even back then. But in that moment, in that particular exact phase of my life where I was, it's not where my mind was. I was too busy, just having fun, just not doing anything serious or committing to anything. And so I was sort of like, oh yeah, that's nice. That sounds good. And didn't think anything more of it. So that was the first seed, that first little nudge from the universe about this meditation practice, which, by the way, was Vipassana meditation. And some of you may know that by the 10-day silent meditation practice as well. And that was in the north of India. About 2 months later, maybe even 3 months later, still on this same traveling trip, we are now in Auckland, New Zealand. And the very first hostel backpackers that we arrived at, there's nobody else there except this one young English lad who was also working at this hostel as well and just staying there long term. We sit down and we're having a chat in the evening one day, and he starts to talk about Vipassana meditation, seed number 2, right? And that's when it struck me. I was like, oh, hang on a second. We've just come in India. I kind of expected it, especially in the north where there's a lot of yoga, meditation, all that sort of practice is very prominent there. But now I'm in Auckland in New Zealand, like a world away from that culture. And it's followed me here. And I noticed that, right? So it didn't pass me. And I was like, oh, okay. Right. And he said, yes, I've just finished doing it. It was amazing. Again, he had nothing but wonderful things to say about it. And he says, there's a center, a meditation center just outside of Auckland. I was like, okay. This time my interest was a little bit more piqued. And because we hadn't quite made plans for what we were going to do in New Zealand other than hire a camper van and travel or something like that across the two islands, right? But 10 days is quite a big chunk, especially when you're traveling with somebody else and that's not on their plan. So I was like, I don't know. It's a big chunk. It's not something we've agreed on. I don't really know if this is something I want to do or how that might even fit. Anyway, sort of brushed it to one side. And so we moved through New Zealand by woofing. Woofing, for those of you who are unfamiliar, is willing workers on organic farms, but it's not actually strictly just farms. It's people who are living and endeavoring to live a sustainable and organic lifestyle, so it can just be a home as well. And one of the places I looked up that resonated was a bit further down in the North Island, was this little family home. I think it was in Taranaki. And the home said that they practice meditation and yoga. And I was like, great, because I used to practice yoga at that time as well. And like I said, I was interested in meditation. So I was like, it's on our route, we can easily drive down there. So why not visit and stop there on the way? And we were in agreement to that. As we got there, I talked to this young couple with this gorgeous little baby that they just had. It was a lady from Chile who had married, I think, an English man, and they were now living in New Zealand. And we were just talking, we were staying with them, and one of the first conversations that came up was, we are both Vipassana meditators. And I was just like, okay, all right, I'm listening. You've got my attention. What is it about this? What is it I need to do? And because we were staying with them for a few days, we got into some very deep conversations about the practice, what it entails, how it's changed their lives, the impact that it's had for them, all those sort of things. But even at that point, I sort of was like, okay, I really want to do this now. This is clearly something I'm being called to do. I recognized this. But how? How do I make this fit? And, I didn't know the why. I didn't know why I was being called to it, but I was open enough to, one, see the signs, see the synchronicities, but also then be open enough to just leap with faith into whatever that was going to take me into, not knowing why it was significant or why it was important. And I think maybe even just being young and naive, not really thinking about it that deeply, right? Because life was good. We were just having a whale of a time traveling around the world. And so I still didn't commit to it because I didn't want to abandon my then boyfriend and ask him to do what? Travel all the way back up north and wait for me while I'm in this meditation center for 10 days. And I swear to God, it had nothing to do with me. I didn't say a single thing to him. He was having his own conversations and obviously been watching from the side because we would talk about the things, the conversations that I'd have and things that I'd noticed. I would talk to him about it. So he was aware of these things that this practice kept coming up for me. And he turned around and said to me, I want to do it too. And I was like, no way. He was like, yeah, let's do it. And of course, because it was divinely orchestrated, the timing was so perfect. There was a course running just before we were flying out of New Zealand. And so we didn't have to drive all the way back up. We were still able to travel all the way down south through the South Island, come all the way back up, and then fit it in as one of the last things that we did before we flew out. And we got a place on the course as well, because nowadays it's almost impossible. They're always fully booked. And so we went and we did this 10-day course. We both sat it. We both had the tools. We both came out like gobsmacked, like, holy moly, that was something out of this world. Never experienced anything like this before in our lives. And it was so, so big, so profound. It changed us as humans. It changed who we were from that day moving forward. And not long after, we came back to England. We had plans of what we were going to do, looking for work, because we'd left everything when we went backpacking for the 12 months that we were away, and started looking for work and this and that and all of those kind of things. And it worked out that I decided to take a job all the way out in Cornwall because it was a good career opportunity for me. And he ended up taking a job in Surrey eventually. So we were separated and living apart, and that didn't seem to be a problem. But what then transpired afterwards, so this was more than a year after that first whisper, that first synchronicity of little nudge from the universe about do Vipassana meditation, was that slowly our relationship started to fall away. And I still, to this day, and I don't think I will ever change my mind on this because I knew it in my heart, that neither of us would have had the tools and the strength and the courage to navigate that breakup in the way that we had to do it, because it was the right thing to do, if we didn't have in that moment the tool of the Vipassana meditation. Not saying that's the only tool, but in that moment, it was what got us through that very, very difficult moment in life. And if we had not had that tool, we probably would have ended up stretching out a relationship that needed to finish, needed to come to an end. But because of fear, because of all the complexities that were in it, we would have just one of us would have kept on holding on, which is what had happened in the past. And even though we both knew it in our hearts, it was the right thing to do. The universe had been watching for a long time, like, okay, your chapter together, your journey together has now come to an end. It just need to thank each other and move on gracefully, without any ill feelings, as friends, part your ways now. We didn't have that courage to do that, and we didn't have the tools to do that, enable us to do that. And the Vipassana meditation gave us the practice that allowed us to navigate that loss, that grief, the mourning, and the heartbreak, and everything else that came afterwards. And then at the end of it, be able to turn around and still smile at each other and say, thank you, that was great, and I still appreciate you as a friend. And the most amicable, most perfect ending to a relationship that anyone could ask for. And to this day, that person is still one of my best friends. So I put that all down to the fact that I followed the synchronicity, those little signs that led me to something that was so much bigger than I could ever have imagined. I didn't know why I was being drawn and taken to this tool of meditation, what it was there to serve me. I just thought, wow, it's changed me as a person profoundly. Okay, so I guess that was it. Well, that was a big part of it, but it was so much more than that. It was very, very much given to us as a tool to help us navigate and heal. And so you just don't know. The point is, you just don't know where these synchronicities are going to take you. And that's just one story. As I said, there are so many of them when I look back on my life, and there are so many of them unfolding now in real time. But until I get to the end of those roads, I'm not able to know what they were leading me to, or where they were taking me, or what the end goal was for. And I'm not meant to know. I'm not here to understand the why of this or the how. It's just having that trust and that faith that I am always being guided. I am never, ever on my own. In the happy moments, I am being guided. In the dark moments, I am being guided. I am always, always there. And all the assistance and all the tools that I can need are there if only I am open to receiving them. So whether we ask because we need help to navigate something, or whether we have no idea of what's about to come, or maybe we do, but it's so deep inside of us, it's in our subconscious level, or we've repressed it because we're afraid to face things until they surface to the top and become very obvious. Your higher self, your subconscious mind is already asking for that guidance and that support, and it will be delivered to you. So look for it, be open to it, and trust it. Trust yourself and trust what you're being guided to. If things come up again and again and it's noticeable and it means something to you, it means it's there to signify something to you. It doesn't have to mean anything to the person next to you because it's not for them. And it can absolutely be the most ordinary thing. It could be something that you see on a billboard and you read the words, and you've read those words 15 times before when you've driven past it, but suddenly today it lands differently. So what is it guiding you to? And then it comes up again in a conversation. Okay, you've got my attention. And then it comes up a third time in something you're reading or something you're listening to. And you're like, okay, what does that mean? You don't have to have it figured out, but then in that moment say, okay, I'm listening. I see that you're guiding me towards something. So please help it to be clearer, or please help me to take the steps that I need to take, that you are asking me to take, so that I can move in the direction that is for my highest good. Because guidance comes and unfolds in real life, in motion, in step with your life. It doesn't come in that sometimes when we ask for that guidance and we're intentionally asking for support and asking for help and asking for guidance, we're expecting this big announcement, like a vision or some booming voice to suddenly come through to us in a meditation if we're sitting in meditation. But it doesn't always work like that. It rarely works like that. Most often than not, it's just quiet little nudges, quiet little signs and symbols throughout the course of our day, throughout the course of our week and our life. Just little things, really ordinary things. So look out for them. And I invite you to try this today, try this week, try this at some point, to look back and to a chapter of your life where you felt uncertain maybe, or you knew that things had to change and you just felt like you needed an extra bit of support. Write down 3 moments that felt random at the time, but how you can now see in hindsight, maybe it was a meeting, a conversation, a door that closed, a job that you lost, a relationship that you lost, or an invitation, an opportunity that opened up, anything, things that seemed unconnected and random at the time, but now in hindsight, you're able to look back and say, oh, wow, okay, there's a thread here. If that hadn't happened, then that wouldn't have happened, then that wouldn't have happened, and now wouldn't now be here today. Can you connect the dots and see what that thread is? Because that was the guidance that you received. That was your higher self guiding you through different events and activities and experiences and nudges. And sometimes, yes, it's louder and sometimes it's quieter. It's all down to depending on how much we're listening, how well we're tuned in. If we're not tuned in, it may need to start screaming sometimes. So they can be a little bit more abrupt, like being laid off from work. That can be a little bit more abrupt, but maybe that wasn't the first nudge. Maybe you've received a nudge for the last 3 years, every single week for the last 3 years, but you've chosen to ignore it. And so finally, the universe is like, God, I've got to get her out of this somehow or another. I know. Or just cut all ties. And it could feel devastating. But actually, all of that time, your health was deteriorating. All of that time, you were compromising your family life, your health, your you time, your quality of your life. And the universe is screaming at you like, get out, get out, get out, get out. You don't have to do this. You have other options. But because of fear, because of all manner of different reasons, you don't get out. Then it might do something quite abrupt like that. But it's still a synchronicity, it's still a sign, it's still the guidance, it's still nudging you, saying, go a different way. So once you've looked back at that thread, what was the better outcome that you couldn't see at the time that you can see now? That is your little takeaway for today. Remember, you are not alone. Guidance is always, always with you. Just be open and start looking for it. Open up your hands and ask for it. And don't dismiss anything. If it catches your attention, pause and give it some attention. Ask, what is this? Does it mean anything? Can it help me? What is it saying to me? What's the message here? And if it's not clear in that moment, just say, I'm open to hearing that message and that guidance. When the time is right, pick your own words, whatever resonates for you. But trust it will come through to you. Thank you so much. If this episode landed for you, please share it with another lady, another woman in your life who may be navigating some turbulent chapter of her life right now and is really seeking some guidance and some support, because I want each and every one of you to know that you are never ever alone, and maybe that's the message that she needs to hear right now. So please do share it with her and encourage her and invite her to come along and listen. Thank you so much. I appreciate you all. And I'll see you next week for the final chapter of this mini Trust and Surrender series. Take care now. Bye-bye. Thank you for joining me on this episode of High Self Mastery. If something landed, moved you, or sparked a shift, I'd love to hear from you. Be sure to follow, subscribe, and share this episode with a woman in your life that is also ready to rise. And if you found value in today's conversation, please take a moment to rate and review this podcast, especially in these early days. It really helps others to find this work too. If you're craving deeper support and sisterhood, join my mailing list using the link below, where you'll be the first to receive free meditations, learn about up-and-coming retreats, and other ways that we can work together. Until next time, honor your truth and trust in the timing of your becoming.